when you are very smart about your funnel, you are much, much more equipped to bring in the right people, which means that if you're losing them, it's a very different problem to solve than if they were never, going to be long-term fits at your company to begin with.
In a global setting, what traits do you look for, attracting the right talent, and then how do you end up retaining them?
Great question. So in terms of attracting the right talent, there's obviously one bucket of hard skills, which are different for each role. If you're hiring a financial analyst, a software engineer, something else entirely. But I think it's just as important to really think about what are the intangibles or the soft skills that you want, and how does that align with the overall way that your company operates? I always found it was really important, especially if you're going to be hiring globally, to really get clear on what are the attributes that make up a successful hire. One way to do that can be actually looking at your existing top performers and saying, what are the things that are similar across these individuals? What is the kind of company environment, the communication style, the culture that we want? And really codifying that, writing it out, and making it part of your interview process.
Tell me, just if you have to highlight one thing, for example, if I find somebody has played sports and successfully won medals in sports, I'm immediately attracted to them. I used to be a sports person myself, because that there's founder bias, and so what is your bias? Like, what gets you attracted right away?
I love people who will run through walls to solve a challenge. I love asking an interview question that gets at that hunger that some people have to just figure it out. Because I think that if you're working in a big corporation, you can have people that just sort of follow orders. They do exactly what they're told and no more. But when you're building a company, when you're going up against giants, you need people that are just going to look at a problem and say, okay, how do I figure this out? There's that. It's a determination, a drive, and I think that you can often get at it by asking people to talk about a professional or personal challenge they faced in the past. What happened? How did they cope? I also love asking I call them sort of like double questions, positive and negative. So tell me one thing you loved about your previous role and one thing that you didn't like and you'd prefer to avoid in the future. Anytime you ask people a good and a bad, they tend to actually be a little more honest. It's both. And sometimes it's very illuminating to understand what somebody didn't like, either because sometimes you can tell they're just giving you a bit of a fake answer. Other times they reveal something really illuminating, and that can help indicate whether they will or won't be a great fit. But
let me try from some another angle. What's an immediate turn off for you? Like, you'll see that and be like, oh, you got to stay away from my company.
I really tried to avoid hiring people who had, not my job-ism. Oh, I don't do that. That's not my job.
That's such a good phrase, not my job-ism.
It drove me crazy because, in the early days of the Muse, you know what I was? The CEO and the person who made sure the toilet paper in the restroom was stocked.
Same, by the way.
Exactly. You're a small company. You need people. And this goes back to, they're like, oh, there's no more toilet paper. Let me figure this out. Let me raise the issue. Let me offer to go buy toilet. Whatever it is. That's a silly example, but it also, I think, speaks to a deeper thing, which is I love people that are like, let me chip in. Let me figure this out.
And I tell you what's my Slack title?
Oh,
it's Chief Everything Officer. The CEO stands for Chief Everything Officer.
See, I love that. And I think that is also a really powerful mentality as a leader. Because for me, I never wanted to. I think it's terrible when leaders get too good for parts of their organization. Of course, you're not going to be doing everything. That's what building a company is for. But I think that willingness to kind of jump in and roll up your sleeves is really important.
Kathryn, I have two co-founders. One of them is still in Singapore. One of them now lives in Brooklyn. His name is Amrit, and he says, to your point, he calls it people who give a shit and people who you can bring to war, which is slightly inappropriate, but still.
But it speaks to this idea of there are people that I would work with again in a second. And one of the things that unites them is they are ready to step up. They're ready to figure it out. And I love that. I mean, I think, there's a powerful thing that happens too when you build a company of individuals who know that they have each other's backs.
One phrase that we always use internally, which reminds me of what we use, is a churn problem is an acquisition problem. Now you will understand that, like if you are churning through some customers, before you actually look into your service levels, think about, are you really acquiring the right customers? And that holds true for talent as well. What do you think?
Yes. I mean, this was one of the principles that I built the entire business of the Muse on. So I love that you brought it up. So many companies only look at why people are leaving without considering whether they were attracting the right talent for their business, their roles in the first place. And I think in order to attract the right talent, it's not just about painting this beautiful picture of how great it is to work for your company, but it's also about giving people a realistic idea of some of the challenges. I think when you are very smart about your funnel, you are much, much more equipped to bring in the right people, which means that if you're losing them, it's a very different problem to solve than if they were never, going to be long-term fits at your company to begin with.